Welcome to the Inspiring Victory Show, where we help you double your business, double your impact, and change the world. And it's for all of you who want to inspire other people and double your business in 1 year or less. And we are very, very, very lucky because today we have our premier ghostwriter with us, Bettyanne Green. I could not be a bigger fan of Bettyanne Green if I tried. I've worked with a lot of different ghostwriters, and we certainly have several that are really terrific out there we like working with. Bettyanne impressed me so much that we have talked her into working with us in-house on a regular basis, and she's done nothing but shine. I don't know many people who can speak in so many different people's voices and who can draw out brilliance and genius in every author they work with. So I am over the moon delighted to be able to share our Bettyanne Green with you so you can learn what it is to write a brilliant book and also what it's like to work with a professional ghostwriter like Bettyanne Green. Hi, Bettyanne. I'm so glad that you're able to be on the show. Thank you.
Hello. It's always a pleasure to be with you, Sarah. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm just delighted to have you on. Well, you know, the number of people have been telling me how excited they are that you're going to be on because they have lots and lots of questions about what's a ghostwriter? How do they work? What do they do? How do you work with a ghostwriter? What's a benefit of a ghostwriter? So we can talk about all that and explain some of those things. But you have a real knack for bringing out real brilliant, those brilliant best-selling books. That's what I think of you as. If you want a brilliant best-selling book, Bettyanne Green's the one to talk to. If you want to write a book of poetry or a memoir, we have other people we can refer them to that are also great ghostwriters. But in your case, again, you're always working with our CEOs and our luminaries and thought leaders and celebrities and stuff like that. So tell me, what kind of questions do you get? What's the most frequent question that you get about ghostwriting?
Right. Well, what is a ghostwriter? And
That's a good one.
I had that same question myself.
Okay.
Before I got into it, well, I realized in doing content marketing strategy and curating content for my practice of clients, I was naturally growing with them in relationship and beginning to write or curate their ebooks and speeches and video, all those things in books, and realized, I think someone brought it to my attention that was ghostwriting.
That's called ghostwriting. Yeah.
And I had that feeling that I think a lot of people do, that it's like somebody in the shadows who's writing memoirs of a celebrity, authorized or not.
Right.
But it's really is someone writing on behalf of someone else. That's the way I look at it.
I
And
think so.
in the industry is generally ghostwriting ebooks and books.
Yeah. And you specialize in business oriented books, and there are people that ghostwrite all kinds of things, and we both know many wonderful people. Your specialty is business books, which is what our company, the Victory Company, is all about. So that's why it's been a great connection, and we're honored to have you as a part of the dream team. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that ghostwriting is so huge. I read a study about 4 years ago that said 77.2, if I remember correctly, percent of all books that you see on Amazon or that you are reading were written by somebody whose face is not on the front of that book. They were written by a ghostwriter. And it's, the people who are great with the intellectual property, the content, the speech that they give about this, the trainings that they do about this material, the people where it is their intellectual property are typically not also great at the writing part of it. And so that's why ghostwriters fill a great need. And even if somebody is a fantastic writer, it doesn't mean that they love it or they have time to do it. I had one of our clients, who shall remain nameless, said if he had to write another book, he was going to fake his own death first. And I was like, okay, it's time consuming, it's exhausting, and often, just best left to professional writers that like to write in your voice. I think it's really interesting that within a matter of weeks, you're able to catch on to the real voice of pretty much anybody we've thrown at you. How do you do that? How do you write as somebody else and sound where the book, they can't tell the difference between maybe a chapter that they wrote or a part of a chapter that they wrote and the part of the chapter or the chapters that you wrote in their intellectual property? How do you do? I'm dying to know, how do you do that? I've never asked. I should ask. How
But
do
I
you do
love that. I love that. And the funny thing is, I have to say, in a way, I don't know.
reasonable answer? Okay, it's magic.
I can talk to it. I can speak to it. But there is something, in my nature, that allows me to do it. And yes, some of my greatest compliments are always along the line of, did I write that or did you write that?
It's like, doesn't matter. We got it together. Well, and I
Yes.
think it's also that ability to, wrangle the cats of the many, many ideas that somebody has, because we've had people that have come to you with, here's 480 points that I want to get into this 180-page book. And you're like, what? Only if you add 400 more pages, buddy. So it's the herding process of what is really, really important in this particular book. And also, you and I spend a lot of our time saying this is not the only book you're ever going to write. You may want a series of 2 or 3 or separate books on separate topics. But yeah, you keep it from being, War and Peace and Harry Potter books 1 through 7, which I think is all in one book. Yeah, which is extremely important. Yeah.
The other piece of it is that, well, first of all, I go through people's content,
Okay.
but the gems are really in the telling. And if at all possible, if I have written a book where I never met the author, we spoke on the phone for 15
Right.
minutes, became an international bestseller, but he said, go for it. And I did. But he had
Jeez.
lots of material. I know he had lots of material in live, but 99% of the time, what really brings a book to life is if we get on the phone together, on Zoom
Mm.
together. And even if they've written something in a blog, I say, tell it to me. I dig deeper. And the gems come out that oftentimes they're not even aware of because it's fresh. There's no self-censoring, it's just
Right.
coming through.
Huh.
So that's really, and I mean, the details of it is I transcribe those and hear them in the recording and, speaking with the client author, but then that's what I draw from because nobody can say it better than they, but the live is really where it comes through.
That's a great answer. Yeah. And I think you have a unique ability to do 2 things that I find interesting. One is you can figure out the things that their audience really, really would find the most valuable, and the ability to organize it in a way where somebody reading it can follow it really well. And, where the progression makes sense and there's a logic path to it. And we've all read books where you're like, well, that was interesting, but it was, all over the place. And yours are, it's organized and streamlined and effective. And I think for people who are strong intellectual property people, where they have a lot of knowledge in their head, it is a lot to figure out what really belongs in this book, what belongs in a different book, what's going to be most important to the audience. And then from a marketing standpoint, because you have a marketing background, being able to say, these are the things that are going to help you grow your business, not just be nice to have in the book. And I think that combination of looking at what are the other goals for the book, those come in really handy. Yeah.
They really do. My marketing background is 35 plus years. I've worked in the magazine industry with consultants, with their clients, a lot of intellectual property industry. And yeah, it makes a giant difference. In fact, I really would say almost all of my clients are wonderful writers in their own right, without the pun intended, in their own right. But it's a different story when it's your intellectual property, it's your brilliance, it's your expertise that truly we can take for granted, because we're in it every day. And the phrase that I love that I wish I'd made up myself is, you can't see the picture because you're inside the frame. So I'm able to be outside that frame and help see where their expertise is and how to organize it. And from a marketing point of view, you're right. The main thing is you could also write a fantastic book that lays out all the beautiful things that you've done and what you offer. But if the reader isn't resonating with it, or they don't have the dots connected to take them, it could be creatively done, but to take them methodically from A to Z, then you lose them, whatever, in the introduction. If not,
right. They're not going to get to, they won't go to, they won't make it to chapter 1 or 2. And that is
get out of it what the author intended for them to get out of it. So that is a key that I have a lot of years of experience doing. And I really enjoy it. I love getting in those weeds, I must admit.
You're very good. You're very, very good at it. Well, and I love when we get to work with people together, which has been really fun for me because I get to come up with a great title and a great subtitle and all the chapter titles and look at it from purely what does this person want? What is this vehicle of the book supposed to do for the client? And is it supposed to get them a lot more speaking business, consulting business, more business to whatever widgets they sell? Is it supposed to make them more of an authority or more known in the industry? Like what is it trying to do? And then backtrack to the title and the subtitle. And I tell people, you will live or die by what you call that book. If you call that book something, Fluffy Bunny Goes to the Mall ? It is not going to sell. I don't care how wonderful the book is. It is just not going to sell. And it's not going to do what you want it to do. But that idea that it has a purpose. What is the purpose of this book? And then you're able to then take it and say, let's make it a really brilliant best-selling book that people will be dying to read and that does what Sarah's been working on, what I've been working on, getting the book to do for them from a marketing perspective. But most people just write books to write books. And like you said, I love that what you said about they're busy being in the frame. And I think once it's framed, then it's how do we frame that truth and that brilliance in the best possible light? And that's where you come in.
I can tell you an example of that, of a client who was is still a leadership coach. And I had been writing and curating blogs for her for a very, very long time. And she decided to do a book. And I basically used the string of blogs in a sense with a lot more research and a lot more added to become a book. But she was stuck on the title. She wanted her title and it was published. And she had wonderful accolades. It was like critically reviewed, as they say about movies, and it didn't go anywhere. So I encouraged her to start, to update the book. This was a year later, to update the book, change the title. I wish I'd had you at that time to choose one.
Prior to knowing me, I could tell you just would have called me in the first place. Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it made all the difference. And one of the interesting pieces was the feedback we got in the process. Is by the time we got to the end of the book, we were ready to really do it again, to be honest. But she wanted to get it out. But it was just that it was when you talk about the purpose of the book and the marketing of the book, just briefly, what the unexpected interest of the book is in women's historic leadership studies. And she
interesting.
Yes. And one of her main fans said this book should be on every shelf in every college in every women's studies and business schools. So we actually reframed it a little from that angle for those readers. And it took off. It took off. It was an international bestseller. It has been a calling card for speaking and training and workshops and all of those things.
Nice.
So yeah, it's an example of what you're talking about. It needed to be framed.
That is a really good example.
Yeah.
Really, really good example. It makes a huge difference. So we both know that we go backwards with things, which is usually we come up with a great title, we come up with a great subtitle, and we come up with fantastic chapter titles because nobody's going to buy it if it doesn't have those things. And then it can be repurposed into a speech with the same 7 secrets instead of 7 chapters. And it can be repurposed into other things like articles for the Wall Street Journal, which I know you have repurposed and packaged and stuff like that. But so, that initial piece. But I think what people don't realize is just those early pieces of clarifying what it is you want to put in the book with you, clarifying what we're going to call the book on the outside. We had one client that we work with together that we both love, who was able to triple his entire business just by the fact that he had a title that finally explained what his business of over 20 years actually did in terms of benefits to people, and chapter titles that made people want him to come in and speak to those different chapters. And you were able to clarify what exactly his company was about by digging out all those great stories and examples and structure within that. So, I mean, seeing those kinds of miracles, I think, is why we love doing all this. I am so incredibly honored to have you as a part of the Inspiring Victory tribe at the Inspiring Victory Show. Please do us a favor. We really need your help. Please like, subscribe, share, write a comment. It makes a huge difference with how many people we can reach here at the Inspiring Victory Show, and it makes a big difference to me personally. I want to make sure that we're providing content to as many people as we possibly can so they can grow and succeed. So we'd love to have you continue your membership here at the Inspiring Victory Show. It's free. Helping us out costs nothing, but it makes a huge difference in how many people we can help. So double your business, double your impact, and change the world. And thank you so much for being a part of this extraordinary community. Thank you.
Well, two main things. One is clearly a situation where it's someone who has been doing this work for a very long time and has developed an incredible expertise. And I got to play the role of maybe the reader who is either, well, wouldn't be clueless because it's for a particular audience that would have, a general knowledge, of what he's sharing, but who don't know what he knows. So I be that person to, ask those questions. It was also a matter of, there were so many overlapping pieces of intellectual content that it needed to be grouped into some way that could unfold so that the reader would get A and in the next chapter get B, and then we could, load more of the deep stuff later. So that was one way around organizing the book. The other second piece that is so beautiful, and I see it almost every time, I'm sure you do too, in the process of writing the book, the authors, it takes a lot of thought, whether you have a ghostwriter or not, we're working together and they really need to think. You've got to answer these questions, some of whom they've never answered for anyone before, that I'm asking. So it changes their business for the better.
That was what happened with, we'll call him Bob. He probably loved to be promoted. However, but yeah, that's what happened with Bob, his business was able to triple because of the fact that he finally had a clarity on what were they really doing over there after all those years. And it's that fish don't see water. It's that brain surgeons aren't allowed to do their own brain surgery. He was just so close to it. He couldn't see what we all could see about what was valuable about his business. And that could be presented in the book in a way that was super educational. You could get to the end of the book and be fantastic at the type of work that they do, but also it would be a win for them in that even if people read half of it, they would know the incredible benefits of working with him and with their company. Yeah. What have you found to be the surprising benefits of writing a book? And that was a really good example of one. Are there any others?
Another thing that I've noticed is, well, the first thing that it gets done.
Also true, very true. Yeah, not languishing over it for 20 years, thinking that you have to smoke cigars and drink cognac in Paris in a garret for 10 years to write, 180-page business book. Yeah. It actually gets it, and then it doesn't get done anyway. Yeah. So it gets done. That's a big point that it gets done.
I know many of our clients have, I took 7 years on this one and wrote it for 2 years, and I've been trying to, think of it for a long time. By the way, Ernest Hemingway says, writing is easy. Sit at your typewriter and bleed.
Oh, I like Ernest anyway.
Yes, I help you lower your blood pressure and not.
And the bleeding is no longer required if you don't do all of that part of it. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you do all the hard part. Actually, I always say, let her do the hard part. You go do the fun part of speaking about your book and doing a book tour. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is good. Yeah, and I think that's why people avoid it for so long. But coming from the speaking side of things, having spoken to 3,000 groups and 3.5 million participants. There were so many places that were closed to me before I started writing books. It doesn't have to be a New York Times bestseller, which some of our clients have got New York Times bestsellers, but you have to have completed a book with a title that is applicable to what their audience is looking for in order to get into lots and lots of places. So it's a barrier for a lot of people. And then I hear people like, oh, I've been working on this book for 2 years, 5 years. I think the guy was like, 15 years I've been working on this book. That's just too long. Give it to somebody else. You don't want to finish this book. Let somebody do it for you. So yeah, so it gets done. Yep.
Your book is your business card. There's no question.
Yeah, there's no better entree if it's done well. Yeah, and even just talk, like you said, or Bob, we'll call him, he was able to talk about what he did, give examples that he knew were relevant to potential clients. And yeah, and that led to 3 times the business but just over a year. That's an extraordinary leap just from the exercise of writing a book. And I think it's not always just what you get, it's who you become. There's a confidence level you have when you have, staked a claim of this is my territory. I own it and I'm an expert on it, because who writes books? Experts. And you see yourself differently once you've written a book or 2 or 3, and even just that first book.
There's another, I guess it's a surprise that I have been realizing more and more working with you, I will say, because of the beautiful work you do with your clients, where if they want to grow their business, they can't always do things the way they've been doing them. We're serving the exact people they've always been serving. And I have seen over and over again where if they're in the mindset of where they used to be, it's very difficult to get to where they need to be around expanding or shifting their target market. And writing the book and the work that you do with them and the work that I'm doing as a ghostwriter helps them step into that next place. And I've seen that a lot of beautiful ways with my work with my own clients and the clients that I'm working with through you. It's just doing something differently through how you articulate your business, how you look into who is your target market, what kind of revenue is that going to bring, what is that going to look like, and how do we speak to it through the book. It's a pleasure when it works, which so far so good.
Yeah, so far we'll keep that up. Yeah, you always hit it out of the park every time. But yeah, how do you frame the truth in the best possible light? And
Right.
It's stepping up into that place. And we have leaders that have always wanted to be more visible in the marketplace or in their industry. And this is something that is a fairly easy way to do. And it takes courage, but it gives so much in terms of confidence and in terms of breaking into new places you didn't even know you could go. But yeah, like you said, even just having people, you and I and the rest of the team, having us looking at that business from the outside and saying, this is the real value of what you do. Write about that. Underwater basket weaving may be your passion on the weekends. I'm not sure that's really the book you want to write. I think I told you I had this wonderful guy came to me. He'd been a Fortune 1000 CEO and left the organization and said, I want to do some speaking. I want to write a book. And I said, that's great. He goes, yes, I have the title. And my thing about never have a title with a question mark. You're supposed to be the expert. They're coming to you for answers, not questions. And his solar eclipses question mark. And I'm like, who's going to buy this book? And and you want to speak to corporate America? And he goes, oh, no, you don't understand that. The solar eclipses, they're great metaphor. They're wonderful. They're lovely. I'm like, no one's going to buy this thing. No one is going to buy this thing. And so we changed it to, it was 7, I won't give the title away because I don't want to out him, but yeah, it was, 7 secrets that every leader needs to know to attract exactly the right people that you need and to be able to be a superstar, rock star, Fortune 1000 CEO. But it's so easy to get caught up in things that we're sort of interested in and not realize what is the real value that you provide, to the market. And I think between us, we're always so far able to find out what it is that people actually want. And that's what I figured out the most is people buy what they want the most and what they can justify the easiest. And you're able to figure out, this is what your market really wants. Let's write to that. And then once you have them into a chapter or into the book, you can give them things that they also need, but don't know that they want.
As an author, and also a thing that a good ghostwriter should bring, and that is if you want your book to spawn invitations to podcasts or speaking, then the research treatise isn't going to work. So that's where your voice comes in. And I try to write in the way that they speak with proper grammar and a little research, and credibility to back it up. And one example is a client that I had for whom English is a second language. And she said she wrote her book and she handed it to me and it needed a lot of work.
Wow.
So when I wrote, my challenge or my happiness and joy around it was to write it like she speaks, and with proper grammar. And it turns out I am so excited for her. She is everywhere. She is speaking everywhere. She is
Love it.
English and Spanish. It's just incredible. How do we do this in her voice? And if I had done it the way Americans speak all the time, it wouldn't have been her. So,
Right.
she gets engaged to speak, and the speaker's going, who is this? This is nothing like the book. What did I read about her? Who is this person? So that's the other thing, I think, to
It's
make
important.
it credible, conversational, or at least certainly in the author's voice is a very important thing.
But polished. Yeah. Yeah. I always say to writers and to speakers and to, authors in general that I had this great house up in the Northwest for a while. Steve and I bought it, and it had like 20 acres of land. And getting down to the house, it was, it was like green and brambles and blackberries, and it was gorgeous. You couldn't see another house for 365 degrees, and there was trees everywhere. There was, brush everywhere. It was just wild and gorgeous and beautiful. But, after a month of that, getting your car down through all of that became kind of a royal pain. And I was like, it's still beautiful. Oh, don't get me wrong, it was gorgeous, but it was scraping up the paint. So we had a driveway, quarter-mile driveway put in, and we put in some gardening and some shrubs and everything. And all of a sudden it was much more, polished up and, a little more frankly presentable. But it was beautiful before. The writers that we get, they're beautiful writers. They're wonderful writers. And then it's just a matter of, can we polish it up a little, make it easier for people to experience their writing in their book, and make the experience of getting down the driveway easier, and it's just polished. Can we polish it up to a point where everybody that reads that book get something powerful out of it? Not some people, not a few people, but everybody, really gets the power of what it is they want to say. And that noble goal, that noble purpose of the book, of like, why are you writing this? How do you want people to feel at the end of the book? How do you want people to be more successful because they've read it? Nobody writes a book or reads a book because they want to be less successful. I mean, it's, so it's having that noble goal, but also having those personal business goals. If you are in business, the book should also be getting you some business, getting that balance just right.
You want the book to work for you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It like a vehicle. It should function the way you want it to function.
And you should feel satisfied about it. Again, another compliment that I love to hear is that they're proud of their book. They're proud of it's very vulnerable. It's scary, almost always, but they're just proud that it's out there, and they're proud to speak to it and speak from it. That's huge. That's a wonderful.
That is huge. That is huge. I think that's a lovely thing. Yeah. I mean, it takes so much courage to put all of your thoughts onto paper and put them out there, and then to know that you've got people in your corner who are going to make sure it is a brilliant book. It is a good book you can be proud of, and that when you read it, you feel good about it. And then it's funny because a lot of times people are like, well, this story of climbing Mount Everest or whatever, it happened to me, so it's not that big a deal. Our client, Suzanne Nance, who literally climbed Mount Everest, and she was like, it wasn't that hard. It wasn't that big a deal. I'm like, yeah, it was hard. And it was a big deal. And your story, deserves to be told and to be heard. But we have a tendency to think, oh, like when somebody gives you a compliment on something you're wearing, oh, this whole thing, we forget that it's news to somebody else. They would love to know your experience as a leader or as a two-time Olympian. We have our two-time Olympian, or climbing Mount Everest, or whatever it is that you have. And it doesn't have to be something huge like that. It can just be that you have wisdom about how to run a company, how to grow a company, how to sell, how to be a good leader, how to be successful, how to grow personally. All those things are valuable too. But I hear a lot of times people feel like they don't know that what they have to say, it would be extremely valuable to other people.
Absolutely. That's my message, I think, over so many years. It's been, you are master creator of your message, and you have brilliance because of the culmination of your experience, of your story, of what you have to offer in the particular way you have to offer. And I haven't met anybody who's not not had something to say, or not.
I mean, I think pretty much Yeah, I think pretty much anybody could write an interesting book with your help, maybe not on their own, because everybody has some sort of interesting story or interesting thing in their life or things in their life that would be of value to other people. Is it going to help you elevate you as a person, you as a business? Is it going to repel the wrong kinds of potential clients? Is it going to attract it? It's more of that than trying to write, the great American novel or whatever. It's a vehicle. And how do you do that? But people often will say, oh, there's thousands of books on leadership. Why should I write another one? Or there's tons of books on sales. And like, yeah, but there are people who read thousands, or they read every new one that comes out, or they don't want to read, that book that their dad had on his desk 30 years ago. They want their new thing that, that they just discovered because, but
Well,
I would say it's
in business, especially in business, because, I think of somebody who's worked on a book for 7 years. Business
yeah,
changes,
yes,
changes,
yeah.
changes, the times change.
The world changes. I mean, look what happened with COVID. I mean, the whole world completely changed overnight, practically. Yeah,
Right. So those new voices and the new messages and the new ways of framing those
yeah.
are really important.
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, Meritess Bott of Bott and Associates.
I'm so honored to get to be with our wonderful sponsor for the Inspiring Victory show. And I want to make sure you know a little bit more about her and about what they do, because I think it'd be really helpful for all of us as business people and just in our personal lives. Meritess does a lot of speaking, as many of you probably know, but I love one of the speeches that she's famous for, which is A Generous Legacy, the power of future-proofing your business and your personal life. And that's really what you are all about. So I want to talk a little bit about that with you. And can you give us an example in how you were able to help them that might be able to help all of us as we navigate our financial planning as well as our estate planning for business and for personal?
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, thank you for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it. We do a lot of estate planning, obviously, as well as the financial planning for our clients. And a story that I think is a great way to showcase what we do is this wonderful couple that we met back in, I want to say 2015. They came in for a consultation. So they are certainly a wonderful couple, blended family. So second marriage for both of them. He has children and she does not. Basically, they were saying to me, Meritess, I really want my estate plan to be secure. I want it to be ironclad so it goes to the right people. Particularly the wife was concerned that this money goes to her charities, which she was very, very active in and volunteers quite a bit. She puts her hard-earned money with them. And she also wants to make sure her husband is taken care of as well. So she wanted to do both objectives at the same time. We were like, of course we can help you with that. We want to make sure that we write everything down and just like you said, make it ironclad so that there's no contest. There's nobody trying to get to the money inappropriately. Right. So we created a wonderful estate plan for them. So that was 2015. Now, sadly, she unexpectedly passed a few years later. And her surviving spouse came to us and he really needed help. He was so, of course, distraught and super, super sad. But he was also very concerned about the financial pieces. He wasn't that familiar with financial instruments. There was 13, 14, 15 accounts that she had. And of course, he was like, I'm confused. What do I do with all of this? So we said, okay, we're going to take care of you. We got this. And we were able to really take a hold of all those instruments and all those accounts. And on our financial side of our business, we were able to consolidate them, invest it in very prudent investments and make sure it's easy for him to manage. So we were able to do that within 3 to 6 months. His late wife's wishes of him being able to live on that money and then eventually at his death give it to her charities is exactly what's going to happen. So wonderful to be able to plan it properly, give her peace of mind. A few years later, we're honoring 100% of her wishes. This money is not going to go to anybody inappropriately. And her beneficiaries, her charities, are going to be so happy to be able to get this money upon his death, because he is still able to live on that income. So I love those stories, because to me, we work so hard. We sacrifice daily, right? We work so hard, and we want to be able to take our money and be able to give it to people that we love, and charities that we believe in.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us. I always enjoy spending time with you. And yeah, you're one of the people I always find so much value in talking to. You're just walking integrity, and you're a good soul, and you help people. You help people. So thank you for being on the show again, and for sharing with us, and for always doing such a great job for everybody. And now that you're able to do even more and be more of a one-stop shop to help people with all these different issues, I think your company and you are even more valuable. Thank you so much. Always lovely to see you. Marites Bott and Associates. If it's something that you need, be sure and contact Marites right away. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.